guys, it's Ghosdee and special guest
Derek Sykes. Hi guys.
Today we're going to be talking about People Under the Stairs. It's the Thursday, and this week we're looking at People Under the Stairs, and I have a special guest. So before we get into the film, I do want to talk about our special guest. Derek?
Hi, I'm super excited to be here. Longtime fan of the channel and Twitter friend of Dee. More recently, Zoom friend of Dee. And man, I'm so excited to talk about this movie. And I mean, just talk about anything in general. Like, love horror. I like writing horror. I have a podcast. We talk about horror there. My podcast is And That's It, featuring Juno and Derek. Dee has been on it, and she will be guesting on it again. So definitely check that out.
Your podcast is amazing. They're both honestly really hilarious and just great people to chat horror movies with. So I'm excited to be back on, and I'm so happy to have you on my channel. This is like not my first guest, because my cousin was a guest, but this is like my first like horror collab guest, which is like super official for me. I'm so excited. So People Under the Stairs, written and directed by Wes Craven, came out in 1991. I'd say that this is the most underrated Wes Craven film. I just don't think that people talk about this a lot. Personally, I think it's because it centers around a Black kid, and I just think that has a lot to do with it. Unfortunately, but it's like honestly an amazing movie. Like, I think it's great. I had so much fun watching it last night. I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, and I actually recently learned that this was one of my mom's my mom's favorite horror film, which I think is kind of cute because I like got into horror because of my mom, and I never knew what was her favorite horror film. So when I learned that it was, I'm like, this makes it so much special. And watching it last night, I like understood why it was one of her favorite horror movies. But yeah, had a blast rewatching it. Totally rewatchable. I like totally like, I don't know. It's just a great movie. So let's go ahead and dive in with this plot. So this opening credit scene is actually really cool. So I'm really into tarot. So it's up close on some tarot cards. We hear Ruby's voice, right? Is it Ruby?
Yeah, it's Ruby narrating because she's the one that's into tarot.
Yeah, so Ruby, which is our protagonist's sister. Our protagonist's name is Fool. His real name is Poindexter, but we all call him Fool. And we actually learned that she started calling him that after the tarot card Fool, which I thought was kind of cute. She's reading his tarot because it's about to be his 13th birthday, and she pulls a bunch of like bad cards. Well, for a non-tarot reader, they look bad, but they're actually not bad. But for a non-tarot reader, Death and Devil, I know Death came up, Judgment came up.
And I mean, the Fool was the first card she pulled.
Yeah, the Fool was the first card she pulled. She's doing his tarot, and then we go to a scene to where we see Fool, our main character, in like this kind of like torn down apartment, and there's like two kids, and you hear an older woman coughing and Ruby talking to her. We can assume the older woman's like the mom, and Fool tries to go in the room to see what's happening, like, oh, what's wrong? And Ruby like brushes him off, like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Get back to like reading your book, get back to doing what you're doing. And then this random Ruby's friend who's just there, like, I don't know why he's there, but he's just there. Leroy, what is this actor's name?
It's Ving Rhames.
Okay, I don't know his name, but I know him. He's in Dawn of the Dead. He's also in Holiday Heart, which is like Black film that everybody knows. He's in something else too, I feel like.
He's also in Pulp Fiction and Jacob's Ladder. He's the only actor besides Tom Cruise to be in all of the Mission Impossible movies.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't really know them, but
I feel like he needs more respect in the film industry, because I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about him. But most notably for horror fans, he was in the remake of Dawn of the Dead. He played the cop.
And hold on, you're forgetting another important remake he was in. because he was also a cop in the Piranha remake.
Really? Yes, he was. Oh my gosh, why is he playing up? Why does he keep, and he's the secret agent guy in Lilo and Stitch. He plays
Mm-hmm.
Officer Bubbles. I guess they're like bald black guy, cop. um but yeah, so Leroy is just appears and like Fool is like, what, who are you? And he's like, I'm a friend of Ruby's. And it's like really creepy. So like you're thinking like, who is this guy? He's like shitty. I hate him. I mean, in the beginning I was like, I don't really like him, but then I started to like him as the movie went on. Um and he does tell Fool that basically Ruby and their mom is really distressed because they don't have any money. The landlord's hiking up the rent, although they live in a shitty ass apartment. The rent's being tripled, basically, so they can force them out. And they have like a couple days until they get evicted or something.
Yeah, and I actually think, based on my notes that I took, I think we meet mommy and daddy first, and then we meet Leroy.
You are so right. We do. I'm sorry. Let's backtrack. So we meet because for the first half of the movie, we kind of go back in between the two families. So yeah, we do meet mommy and daddy. That's, I don't even think we know their actual names.
No, we don't.
They're just mommy and daddy.
Well,
Very,
we know their last name is Robeson,
yeah,
which just feels like its own other thing.
yeah.
But like mommy's first line, maybe not her first line, but the first line I noted was that she talks about wanting nice, clean people to
Mm-hmm.
live in their apartments, which, feels
Very,
pointed.
yeah. Um, it's very, very obviously they are racist. Very obviously racist. Um, and just awful, disgusting people. They have a daughter, what we can assume is their daughter, Alice, and it's obvious that they're very verbally and potentially physically abusive to her as well. Um, and we get a little hint that there's also maybe someone else in the house as well. And that's pretty much all we get from that scene, right?
Yeah. Also, I did note we don't see mommy's face in this scene, and we only see daddy from the profile.
Right.
So, like, there's this air of real mysterious creepiness around them.
And I think
Yeah.
that they, jumping ahead a little bit, they stick to that mysteriousness like throughout the film because it's like every 10 minutes it's something else is revealed about this couple. Can I call him that? It's like I feel like I kept getting blown away by like how more awful, how more weird, like up until the very last second, these two people just kept getting worse, you know?
It's funny because, as well, I don't know about like how funny it is, but this movie is a horror comedy, right?
Yeah.
But the first, I would say, like 30 minutes aren't that funny. They're really like serious. So for the first 30 minutes, I was like, is this a horror comedy? But the worse that mommy and daddy get, like the more sick stuff we learn about them, the funnier the movie gets and like
Yeah.
the more absurd. So that was a really interesting dynamic to have. Like, as they get more and more unhinged, so does the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. It was really, I feel like some thought was definitely put into that. I think a lot of thought was put in every aspect of this movie. And I mean, it's Wes Craven. What can you expect? I just really appreciate the way he puts films together and the thought he puts into them. Um, yeah, so Leroy tells Fool what's happening. And he basically he's like, I can figure out a way to like help you get some money. Um, and we just leave it at that, and then we go back to mommy and daddy, and that's when we actually meet Alice and see that not only are they mysterious and racist, but they're fucking abusive. And um we're in a scene where we meet Alice and they're just like their like obsession with for lack of a better term, like Christianity, because it doesn't really seem like I don't know where else they're getting their morals from, but they say things like burn in hell and like, things like that a lot. and they're using those morals to like abuse their child. Um, and that comes out, and we kind of know that Alice is there's somebody else in the house that Alice may be helping. We don't really see anything, but we get like a jump stick scare of this hand that comes out of the wall. Um, and it ends with uh like mommy saying like Alice has been a bad girl, and daddy like getting close. We know that he's probably gonna abuse her. And then we go back to Fool, Leroy, and Ruby. And Leroy has this great idea of like breaking into mommy and daddy's house because he says there's like there's gold there or something. Like he says that they owned basically half the buildings or all the buildings in the area. They're rich, there's gold. We need to break into this house and steal their money. And he thought it'd be a great idea to invite a 13-year-old boy to do this. I do not know why he thought it was a great idea, but grand idea. Let's have a kid help us do a heist.
Well, the way they're using him at first, if mommy and daddy were a normal couple, it would have been clever to use him as the bear trooper. But because they don't know the truth about mommy and daddy, and we also don't at this point really know the truth about mommy and daddy, it like obviously does not work out for them the way that they planned. Also, a random note that uh about Ruby, she's played by Kelly Jo Minter, who is in Dream Child, the fifth Nightmare movie. She
Oh,
plays Yvonne, who's the only Black woman to survive a Nightmare movie.
wow. I did not know that. I did not peep that. That's a good fact. She's a fellow scream queen.
Yeah, I
That's,
think she did a couple other horror movies as well. So like she's definitely an underappreciated one.
yeah, for sure. I gotta look some more of her stuff up. Fool agrees to go on the heist with Leroy, and then we meet his friend. What was his name again?
Spencer,
Spencer.
he's the
Spencer.
white one.
Yeah, he's the white one. And as Derek said, they set it up to where Fool is in this like bear troopers costume, and he's gonna try and like distract them, and get in the house to see like entry points, any way that they can try and like sneak in this house. And we do learn that this house is like locked up, and immediately mommy when mommy answers the door, she's very like defensive, and we assume it's just because of like how racist she is, which I'm sure plays a big role into it. But aside from that, they do like have this house like on lockdown, like very keep to themselves, like fucking weird in that way. um and we learn more about that when Fool strikes out and says like I couldn't get in the house and everything is like all locked up, and Spencer was like, well, I'm gonna try because I sent a boy to do a man's job. That irritated me so much. I'm like, Spencer, could you like at least entertain the idea that she didn't want to let him in because he was Black and she didn't trust him? Like, could you at least entertain that? Like, I just hate how
Yeah,
like Leroy and Spencer both like shit on Fool. I know it's like a part of the story because like Fool is the savior of the day. Like he saves everybody and he's the bravest out of all of them. So like, go ahead.
I just wanted to know. I couldn't confirm this last night, but I just looked it up. So the first card we see when the movie starts, we open on a tarot card, and I couldn't figure out what card it was. I knew it was swords, but so the opening card is the Knight of Swords, which like, and it's upright, which means like he's ambitious, action oriented, driven to succeed, and fast thinking. And like what you just said totally plays into that. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting that like we really can divulge a lot of the plot just from that opening tarot reading by Ruby.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about that by the end of the film and I'm surprised I didn't mention it, but when I finished it, I was like, I'm pretty sure that that whole tarot pulling gave us like a preview to the plot of this film. Little not an Easter egg, but foreshadowing. But yeah, Fool is he saves the day. His bravery. literally saves the day, which was a lot of fun to see because he's a 13-year-old Black boy, and I really loves that.
I also want to say this movie, like Black boys get adultified, right? Like very young, around the age that Fool is. But you can't look at Fool and not see a child. He's so small and so young. And yet he really has to act like an adult for a lot of this movie. And it really struck me as something that a lesser filmmaker wouldn't have been as intentional about. I think it was very much part of the themes of this movie, which is,
Oh,
it's about gentrification and um, kind of the adultification of children in general and child abuse, but specifically the way that society treats Black children. And I just thought that was really clever and something that we don't see as much in movies today, weirdly. So I was glad that there is this representation of the true horror of being a Black child in America. And also, Fool's a great role model for
oh,
young Black kids. He's such a great character. He's funny, he's brave, like,
he's
he's just kind of the greatest.
he's very respectful, like in every way. And like honestly, if you know me personally, I don't think majority of men in general are respectful. um and like him being so respectful was just so beautiful to see. And back to what you're saying about the adultification of like young Black men, there's even a line where I think his mom says like, you're gonna have to be the man of the house, and he says like, I'm trying, like, and he turned 13. I feel like is an age where like kids are transitioning out of being a kid and like preteen, and they're taking on more responsibility. And so I feel like his birthday, turning 13, also symbolizes him like stepping up, growing up. Very good point to bring up.
It's really upsetting that cultural critique movies like this exist, 30 years ago at this point, like 30 years this year.
Yeah.
Um, and nothing has changed as much as things have changed. Nothing
Yeah.
has
I know,
changed.
it's so crazy. We have to do better, honestly. So hopefully, but I have some hope with like the Black creatives. And I honestly don't know why, but I put a lot of like my faith as far as like the world changing. I feel like it's gonna happen in with Black creatives. I feel like Black creatives are what's gonna help change the world more than anything. Not the Black politicians, not the Black scientists, not no, the Black creatives. I'm really sorry if that offends anybody, but that's just like how I feel. Because I just feel like the arts is a little bit more, it's easier to reach people with art than with like
Yeah,
like that.
I totally agree. It's part of it is that a lot of my worldview was shaped by my grandmother, and she was an actress and a model, and so she believed very heavily in like the arts as a tool for healing. Ever since I've been aware, I've had this really incredible Black woman in my life who has just really set the example for how to be a creative and a human, and to use the tools at my disposal to help people. So I think you're exactly right. Especially, your point about not waiting on Black politicians to save us.
Sorry.
It's not going to happen. And I mean, the scientists, like, they can, but without the creatives telling people to listen to them,
Yeah.
their work often goes unnoticed and unappreciated.
We're gonna do a lot of tangents this video, guys. um so yeah, Fool strikes out, and Spencer tries as like a gas man, and he does make his way in the house after like a lot of prying, and he even shows like a little fake ID. And it's just that like I don't what like do we go back to Leroy and Fool in the car, or do we see some stuff in the house first?
No, we So she clocks a ring on his finger and it's a skull. And that's when she decides to let him inside. And so yeah, he shows her his ID, which is like the most fake laminated piece of paper I've ever seen. And then we don't see Spencer again because then we just go back to Leroy and Fool in the car, and they're like, "Where is he?"
It's like time is passing, and Fool is very smart. He's probably the smartest character in this whole film. He makes very rational decisions. I can't really say the same for Spencer or Leroy. Leroy acts on like anger and like it's very selfish. He's a very selfish thinker. And Fool is like, maybe we should just go home, like, or maybe, we shouldn't go in there. Like Spencer told us to stay in the car. And um Leroy's like, no, Spencer found that money and took it for himself. We need to go in there and get this money. And it's like, by this time, the audience knows that this family is fucking weird. Regardless if like we know all like how weird they can get, we do know that they're weird and they're racist. And we do know them going into this house is not a good idea. So I immediately get anxious, like, and I know how the movie ends, and I'm still like, do not go in that house, you know? And they fucking decide, oh, she leaves. Right.
Mhm.
She leaves. And they're like, why would they leave Spencer in that house all alone? Like, well, there's gotta be somebody in this house. Um, but they don't really like try and put logic into that, and they just decide to go in the house anyway. And they take their van and go into the driveway and decide to break in through like the back door, and they have to try a lot because this house is really really like tight bolt rigged up. There's like a steel door they have to like knock down and get through. It's a lot. And
Yeah, and also all the windows are padlocked from the outside. And
yeah,
we don't really know why right now, but it is something because when Fool goes back the first time to report to them, Spencer notes that like that's really weird.
yeah, that all the locks, yeah, the windows are padlocked on the outside. Fool does see Alice in the window, or he thinks he sees something in the window, and she goes away. um but they do get into the house, and then we meet Prince, the scary Rottweiler, which I have a Rottweiler with my dad in South Carolina, and he's such a sweetie. I love him so much. So it was really hard to see them demonize a Rottweiler.
I also want to say this dog is clearly like the sweetest dog actor.
Yeah.
It really comes through, even though like he's owned by evil people and they have him doing bad things. Every scene, it's still like, I mean, this dog is clearly a good boy. What can I say?
So cute too. Like even though he's like attacking them and literally wants them dead, I'm like, oh. But he honestly annoys me because he comes up a lot. Like he stops them a lot in the film, and he attacks Leroy imme-
Right, yeah.
immediately.
But this scene, the first scene with Prince, where he's just kind of standing off with Fool and neither of them are moving, it's really tense and it's really good.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty good. Oh, I guess I forgot to mention when they first get into the house, they see like this old room full of like flowers and like a funeral home sign, which doesn't really make sense, but it kind of comes up in the end of the film. Yeah, and they make a comment like, oh, rich people living like this, because they have so many like parts of the house that are just like old and run down. And it's like I read a review on Letterboxd where they said this house is like the TARDIS, because if you see that, like, the exterior is very small, but the interior, there's so many rooms and traps and like hidden doors. Like it's literally just like so much. And it's a TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside, and it's kind of
It is.
like a secret mansion, like a creepy mansion on the inside, which is kind
It
of cool.
actually reminds me a lot of, to make a horror connection specifically, it reminds me a lot of Hill House, specifically from the Netflix Hill House series, because
Oh yeah,
that house is like always shifting, and there's so much there, even though like from the outside it just looks like a regular like huge house. it's so much more than that once you get inside, and that's very much what this house is as well. Like, you can tell it's big from outside. Like, it's definitely not a house I'd ever be able to afford, but inside it's so much more than that, and it's also so disgusting.
Yes, 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 definitely. Which I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, rich people, why are you living like this? Like, just hire a maid. But they do note that before they're attacked by Prince. They get past Prince and they start to explore the house. Leroy goes off on his own, Fool goes off on his own, and he is drawn to the cellar basement area and goes down there, and then he's like, "Oh, I ain't stupid," and goes back upstairs. But then he replays in his head a line that was said earlier by Leroy. It was something like, "Or you're too chicken," or something implying. I don't know if you wrote it down. Um, but it's Leroy spends a lot of time basically calling Fool a punk when Fool is actually being logical. Like, Fool is being logical, but Leroy's like, "You're just a baby," like, and it sucks to see, but like, I guess it kind of helped Fool be a little bit more brave, which was needed for this film. But he replays that line in his head and he goes downstairs anyway, and he sees like a bunch of people downstairs, like in this little area. He also like hears his name whispered, which I don't quite understand like who did that, because none of the people under the stairs can actually talk. Um, but he hears his name and he sees Spencer, and Spencer's dead, and it looks like he was scared to death. Which I'm pretty sure was later confirmed, but his like hair is white, he's really, really pale, and he's holding like a gold coin in his hand. Fool takes it, and I also think this is when Roach makes a brief appearance, right, and scares Fool out of the basement.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like, he's already on his way out because Spencer's hand gets pulled back under the
Oh yeah,
wall, and then
yeah,
it comes back out, and it like someone bit it.
yeah.
And so he's already kind of like, I don't want to be here. And
Right.
then he very briefly sees Roach, which like sends him running.
Yeah. So he gets out of there with the gold coin and he seeks out Leroy, and he's like, "We need to get the fuck out of this house. There's some shit downstairs. I saw some shit." And he finds Leroy, and we're there's a scene where there's a long hallway and we just see Leroy's legs, and one could assume that he's dead, and this is where like the comedy comes in. So he goes up to Leroy, like, and you don't see, it's just a shot of him laying down, his head like maybe in this vent, and Fool is like, "Leroy, Leroy." He's like, "What?" And we get like a little jump scare. He's like, "I thought you were dead." um, which I thought was really funny. Fool is probably gives us the majority of our comedy.
Yeah, Fool is very funny. Brandon Adams, who plays Fool, is so good.
We find out Leroy isn't dead. Fool does tell Leroy, or yeah, Leroy isn't dead. Fool tells Leroy that he saw Spencer and that they need to get out. Um, and Leroy says that he was up at the vents because he heard something down there, and Fool says like, "Oh yeah, there's some people under the fucking stairs."
Yeah. he I he definitely, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he does tell Leroy like there's people and they're in the house, and also they're under the stairs specifically.
Um, and then we hear Mommy pulls up, and long and behold, Daddy's actually with her, which I didn't. You can't. You in the scene where she leaves, you couldn't tell that somebody else was in the house, in the
Well,
car.
I think Daddy was at work and Mommy left to pick him up.
Ooh, okay, that makes sense because they only
That's
have.
not said by anyone in the movie, but like, because she leaves and he's not there and she
Yeah,
comes back with him,
yeah,
that's what I think happened.
that makes a lot of sense. But she comes back and Daddy's there, and they are like, "What? Why is this van here?" And Leroy and Fool try to make an escape, but it's hard to leave the house because like all the fucking windows are padlocked, and they can't just leave from the front door or the back door because they'll get caught. And while mommy and daddy are investigating this van, they see the bear trooper uniform and realize that excuse me.
No, no,
Uh,
no. That happens after they kill Leroy.
oh right. You're right, because they're like, there's one more. Right. Because there's so many parts in this movie where daddy thinks he's won.
Because when they, at first, they think it's Roach that they're chasing upstairs.
Right.
And that's why daddy's shooting into the walls.
Right. So yeah, I guess they immediately go in and they're like, oh, we need to like kill this person. And they immediately, or they don't they get the dog on him? Oh yeah, because they Leroy and Fool like rigs the door. So they make Prince, bust open the steel door to attack them. And Fool, this is like his first act of bravery. He noticed that the front door is like electrocuted or something like that. You'll be electrocuted if you touch it. So what he did is set it up to where the dog is like touching Leroy. Leroy's holding on to Fool, and Fool touches the door, which electrocutes the dog. You think he dies, he doesn't die. We see Prince a lot more in this movie. So mommy and daddy get in, and I don't know exactly what happens, but Leroy eventually does get shot and Fool gets away. And daddy's like, is he in the gimp suit yet?
Not yet.
Okay. When I saw him, I'm like, what? But he celebrates, like, I got him. He probably says burn in hell, because they say that at least a million times in this movie. They're like so excited that they killed this guy, and I feel like they're even more excited that he's black, because they are racist as shit.
Yeah, they are really, I made a note of that because they're like dancing around his body.
Yeah.
Like they're so excited that he was black. And it was really um sickening really to watch. I mean, we see in real life white people take glee in the harm and death of black people pretty regularly at this point. But there was something so sick about the way that mommy and daddy were specifically doing it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, daddy lets out a hard R N word.
But yeah, that's when he hears something else in the walls and he starts shooting the walls, and Fool ends up he escapes into Alice's room, and Alice kind of lets us know what's going on with the people under the stairs and why daddy is like chasing. And this is when he has the gimp suit on, and I'm like,
so
what the fuck?
the sequence of events is, so they get Leroy, daddy heads upstairs to clean up because he's shot at Leroy. When he's up there, he hears Fool inside the wall, but assumes it's Roach. So he's shooting at him. But Fool escapes to the other side of the house with Alice. And then in that time, daddy goes back to his room, puts on the gimp suit, and then comes back to start attacking them again.
Daddy's a very interesting character. He's so disgusting in every way, but you can't help but laugh at his like stupidity, how awful he is.
He really is like almost a cartoon character.
Yeah, he is, like the facial expressions, the way he moves, like
I definitely think mommy is scarier.
Yeah, no, I feel like she's even more unhinged than he is, because like I mean, like, she has like a mental illness.
Well,
Like,
I think I would say they both have a mental illness, but I think the way it manifests in mommy is definitely more
sinister.
like sinister, yeah, like very scary.
Yeah, she's very dark, and he's kind of just like a goof.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because like women are more serious than men. And I feel like mommy is always like, you can't do shit right. Like she's always just like looking at him like, you're so stupid. Like
she calls him an idiot several times.
So Alice saves Fool and gives us like some information on what's going on. So she basically says that mommy and daddy wanted a son and they kept taking these sons or like taking these babies, but they wouldn't act right. So they would um shove them in the cellar. And I'm pretty sure she mentions is the whole like see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, because some of them have their
Right.
tongues cut out. They've been living under there for God knows how long.
I also want to just take a moment here to kind of the inherent evilness of the idea of see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, which is demonstrated beautifully in this movie when Fool calls out Mommy for being a monster, and Alice is like, speak no evil, hear no evil, and like pretends he didn't say anything.
Right.
And like that idea is inherently flawed, you know, because if you can't call a spade, then like we're all going to go on pretending we're fine
Right.
and we're not fine. It's a very white way of viewing the world. But I mean, it manifests itself definitely in Black households as well,
Yeah.
but I think a little different. I also want to point out that, like, in this era of Wes Craven filmmaking, he has a lot of great Black characters in his movies.
Yeah.
Because this comes out in 1991. So Serpent and the Rainbow comes out 3 years before this in 1988. And that has a Black female lead, which is we love to see because there aren't enough Black women leads in horror movies. um, you know, Nightmare 5 isn't his movie, but it's part of his
Creation.
baby series. So obviously, like Yvonne and Sheila from Nightmares 5 and 4, respectively, love them. They're great, especially Sheila.
Yeah.
The most the Freddy victim I wish I could save the most
Yeah.
is Sheila in Nightmare 4. Then you have Scream 2 comes out a few years after this. And you have, you know, Phil and Maureen in the opening, but then you have the camera guy whose name I can't remember, and Hallie, Sydney's roommate.
Yep. Yeah.
There's another character I wish I could save.
Yeah.
Um, but then also like in Last House on the Left, you have like the chicken lady.
No.
I don't love that movie, but she should have won an Oscar for that.
Yeah.
Really, if we look at it, the 90s is like for Black horror.
Yeah, it is peak. But yeah, so Alice tells him that they're why the people are under the stairs, and she also tells him that Daddy's in a gimp suit shooting the walls because Roach has escaped. Roach is like Fool in a sense that he's brave. And he doesn't want to live in the cellar, like he wants to get out, and he likes playing these games with Daddy. Like he likes, you know, leading him on. He likes making Daddy feel like he's gonna win, he's gonna get him, and he doesn't, which I, you know, plays into the humor of the movie. And it's a lot of fun to see that Daddy doesn't always get his way, you know, although all these boys are like trapped under, and you know, there's this one that didn't completely lose his faith, you know, and trying to have fun with the fact that he's probably lost so many years of his life being there. Um, and so Roach is who we saw earlier, and we, you know, the way the film played it off, we thought would be somebody that's scary, but we do learn that like Fool can trust um Roach. And Alice and Roach have a relationship. We know that Alice is feeding Roach. We know that Alice uses, you know, some of the vents and like things like that to communicate with Roach, and help lead him through the walls. Did they stick the dog on him again?
Um, and yes, they sick the dog on him, and because he sends it back to the kitchen on the slide.
Yes, that's honestly the most. When I saw that, I was like, "What?" That was such a like funny, cartoonish scene.
It is, and also the dog is having the time of its life going down that slide. The dog is so happy.
And you see like the disappointment on the parents' face when they
They
Like,
really want it to be Fool.
yeah, they really want it to be full.
Also, I think this is the scene where Alice tells Fool sometimes in is out. And that line meant a few different things for me. Like it made me think about how sometimes, and we see it a lot with people like me who like are very white passing, um, who their way of surviving is by living in the system and participating in it.
Mhm.
And that line really brought that up for me. Like Alice is surviving because she's following the rules.
That's a really good point. And Alice also does say like nobody gets out, you know, like she's basically
Mhm.
telling Fool like you're fucked. Like nobody's gonna get out. And Fool's like, you'll see. Um
And
so
they also meet Roach,
oh yeah, they meet
like
Roach.
for real.
Yeah, they meet Roach for real. And yeah, so we learned that Daddy's also a fucking cannibal.
Yep.
I was like, you're a cannibal, like racist, you abuse children, you have a gimp suit,
And
and now
somehow it's not the worst thing about him, because the worst thing about him we will learn later.
later, yeah. Somehow that's not the fucking worst thing about him, which is weird. Um, but yeah, he's a cannibal and he's like toying with the people under the stairs, you know, like, oh, you want some of this food, blah 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 blah. And he decides not to kill Fool. He's like, I'm gonna let the people under the stairs take care of you. He decides not to kill him for some reason. He said he just can't kill him. I don't. Did you get that? I don't understand why they couldn't kill Fool. I know it's like plot reasons, but like from a character standpoint, I don't think if it weren't for the plot, he would make that decision.
I think so. They have an obsession with collecting kids, right? But Fool's black, so they can't exactly collect him.
Right.
But also, it's convenient to have him around as food for the people under the stairs. And because they're so sadistic and cruel, Leroy they had to kill, because to get him downstairs, like he's a fully grown adult man, it would have been harder for them to get him downstairs for them to eat him. But mommy and daddy can take this 13-year-old, this small 13-year-old child, and easily handcuff him downstairs for them to eat him alive.
Right. And that's what
So
they do.
it feels like it's just part of their cruelty.
Yeah.
That like they don't kill him then. They're keeping him alive so something worse will happen to him.
Okay, that makes sense. That clears that up for me because I was like, "What? What are you doing?" I jumped over this, but earlier they do make Alice like try and clean up the blood,
Mm.
and
Oh no, that's right after this. So mommy, as we said, she was going to make her clean up the blood, right? So she's dragging her down the stairs, and then she shoves her, and Alice slips on the blood, and she slips hard. It looked
yeah,
really painful.
yeah, it looked like
And
real
so she gets blood on her dress, which is white because it
period.
is. And that pisses mommy the fuck off.
Yeah.
Mommy's like, you got blood all over your dress. You have to clean yourself. And so
Mhm.
she brings her up to the bathroom. And this was one of the hardest things
Mhm.
for
Oh
me
my
to sit through in the movie.
God, the
So she
burn
has the
water.
tub, the water is boiling, and she holds her down. She makes Alice take a bath in scalding hot water. Like it's so hot, it literally changes Alice's skin tone.
Yeah, her skin is like red when she gets out.
I had truly like full body cringes during
Like,
that.
so Daddy comes in and I'm assuming like abuses her again after the whole like hot water shit, and Fool, he shoots Fool. Oh, not Fool,
He
Roach.
shoots Roach.
Roach. And they
Well,
meet in like the furnace area.
yeah.
And that's when I don't think we know that Roach was actually shot until this scene where
Mm-hmm.
Fool is like, "You're shot," and um,
Well,
Roach,
Roach frees him
yeah,
because and he distracts the other stair people
yeah,
because he uses Leroy's corpse. He like holds it up, and
yeah. He
then
like
all the
spoof thing, like
yeah.
it's a scary ghost.
And so he spooks the other stair people away, and so he takes um Fool into this like furnace,
Mm-hmm.
and he gives him another gold coin.
Oh no, he gives him like a whole thing of coins.
Right. You're right. He gives him a few. It's like a piece of cloth wrapped around
Yeah,
like
yeah,
some gold coins. And so like what he had suspected, because Fool had found one, right, that Spencer had. So he suspected the gold was really there. Now he knows for a fact that
yeah.
it's there. And um, so this is when he learns that Roach has been shot. And Roach does unfortunately succumb to his wounds. And it made me really sad because I really liked Roach.
Yeah.
Um,
I really wanted them to make it out together in the end.
yeah, but like, I get it. Roach is definitely in the context of this being a satire of gentrification. He is the person who's willing to give up everything for everyone else to live a better life.
Yeah,
So he's a hero, essentially. You
yeah,
know, we really have two heroes in this movie.
yeah,
We have Fool and Roach, because without Roach, Fool wouldn't be able to
yeah,
do a lot of the things he does because he'd be dead.
yeah. And I think what a lot of people take away from that relationship is that the way the movie is set up, we instinctually fear Roach, and
Yeah.
he comes out to be the person that helps him the most. Um, and I think there's just some beauty in that, fearing the unknown, like and the I mean, I also was thinking last night, I wonder how this movie was marketed, because the cover of this movie does not, people, the name of it, People Under the Stairs, the cover of it, you're assuming, I feel like most people went into this movie assuming that the people under the stairs would be the bad people.
Oh, almost for sure. But they're really the victims, you know?
Entirely.
And it's really just interesting. I have obviously I wasn't around when this movie came out. Um, and I have no idea how this movie was marketed, because I wouldn't be born for another 8 years. And uh, I have to imagine that not only was that played down, like the twist that the people under the stairs aren't the real villains, there's a part of me that's wondering if Fool being the hero was also played down in marketing.
Because I don't think that Wes Craven would have got in any audience.
Right? And this movie made its money back. So like people
Yeah,
saw this movie.
yeah, people saw this movie, and I think people saw it because they were trying to see some ghosts under the stairs. Like,
But like we get so much more than that. Not
I
that like Ghosts Under the Stairs couldn't have been as powerful,
right.
but like this movie plays on your expectations in a really clever way that I think Wes Craven does really well in all of his movies.
Love him.
What this movie does is it makes us think about the way that we treat like the truly um disenfranchised, you
Mhm.
know? Like the people under the stairs represent houseless people essentially.
Yeah, I mean,
And
even there's a part later on in the film where she says, like, we're being treated like the criminals, and the criminals are like running free. Like literally
oh,
at the heart of this movie, it's like there's good, bad, and bad people should be treated this way, and good people should be treated this way, and which is like really fucked up.
I actually wrote down that quote.
I think
It's
I wrote that down too.
sometimes it feels like we're the prisoners
Yep,
trapped in here while the criminals roam free. And
yep.
actually, she's not technically wrong. It's just that she shifted the subject to make it seem like she is the victim in the situation. But she couldn't obviously tell the police how right she is.
Before we move forward, we did skip the part a little bit where Fool does escape. He escapes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because we got on a tangent, but he escapes, and before like the cops come and stuff, he escapes. He goes home. He brings the coins, and then we meet their grandfather, and he's like, "You have enough money to pay rent through the year two
Also, their
2000."
grandfather's played by Bill Cobbs, who you definitely will recognize.
Yes, yeah, I
So,
recognize him for sure. Um, and so they have enough money to take care of rent, take care of their mom's health, because she's sick with cancer. I don't think I mentioned that, but she has cancer.
Mhm.
Um, and Fool realizes that this movie is not over. Like he can't just save his family. He thought all he needed to do was save his family, but after being in that house, he realized that he has a job and it's to free Alice and the people under the stairs. So he decides,
And he doesn't necessarily think of this right away, but
no,
really he needs to save his community.
yeah,
And those people are in his community. What we see is community mutual aid, essentially.
yeah,
Because not only does the community literally come together to converge on this house, but specifically, if we just look at the residents of the house in Fool, Fool kind of rallies the stair people and Alice
yeah.
to work together to free themselves.
Just like and we do in the real world, because
Yeah.
nothing in the justice system will move or like Black Lives Matter, community coming together. You know, we're working to get justice for parents that have lost their child and things like that. It's very beautiful to see a 13-year-old boy make this decision to go back into this demon house, you know, because he feels it's his job to help these people. So he decides to go back, and what he does is actually call the police to report an abusing. I to me it was obvious that he was using it as a ploy. Like I didn't think the cops are gonna do anything for real. I knew it was a distraction, but it was still kind of annoying to see the cops show up and immediately be like, everything's fine. Like I wanted them to at least like kind of think that something was actually wrong, but no, they're immediately bamboozled. We see that um mommy and daddy has like these like light switches that turns music on and like, you know,
It also, so in the scene where Fool gets back from scouting the house, Spencer asks him if there's a security system, and Fool doesn't know because he wasn't able to get inside. So these, like, they do look like light switchboards, don't they? um, and that is one of their functions. They do control some of the lights, but more so, they do serve as a security system because they're able to lock the doors with those switches.
in the house
Yeah.
and make it so, and they did that actually earlier in the film when they realized that Leroy was in the house. They locked all the doors in the house so they couldn't hide anywhere. And that's
Mhm.
kind of how they got Leroy. But yeah, they entirely bamboozle the cops, even with them seeing that Alice has a room. And like Derek said, they play into the, oh, she died. And we keep the room up because she's dead. We later find out that she is actually tied up in the attic for being a bad girl. And this is gross. Um, Daddy's in his gimp suit again. And she's like, because Fool breaks in and he's in the chimney and he starts talking to her and then they come into they as in mommy and daddy come into the attic and Alice is like trying to deter like daddy from coming or something like that, I think, but she says like, oh no, it hurts or something like that, and he like starts to grope his man parts. Disgusting. Not man parts,
Mhm.
men don't, not all men have penises, but like he gropes his parts. And mommy's like, you need to come here and help me with something. I don't remember what she needed help with, but so he leaves and Fool basically says like, you're gonna get out, you need to get out, we're gonna get out. um and so he helps her get out and they climb on the roof and stuff. And they use the chimney to like it gets funny again. He throws like a brick down the chimney and you know, he's just like using, I love that he doesn't have a gun, he doesn't have anything, he's literally using, he at some point he punches the dog, like he's using his fist and the house to just attack these people, and he's like facing them head on, you know, like daddy has a gun this whole fucking movie, and Fool is like, I don't know, I'm just gonna like use my wittiness in like the house and whatever to try and attack you guys, and he does just that. And um there's some like a little bit of a squabble between like mommy and Fool and daddy. I think he gets daddy like knocked out or something.
Right, because he drops the brick down onto Daddy's head.
Yeah, and then mommy tries to attack him, but they get her down.
Right, because she takes the gun from Daddy after he's knocked out, and because they're like sliding down the chimney, it's very comical.
Yeah.
Um, and they end up crashing into her,
Mm-hmm.
which gets the gun away from her, and it sends the gun into the basement, I believe.
Yep.
And so after that, they come out of the chimney in the living room.
Yeah. And oh right, he tells her to escape,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes downstairs to try and free the people downstairs.
And Daddy wakes up around this point
Yeah.
because Mommy and Daddy are now having an oh, it's when they're on the roof right before this. Mommy and Daddy are having an argument, and Daddy keeps saying, "I know he did it with her,"
Yes.
which is so gross.
Disgusting. Why are
I mean,
you
it's gross in general, but like these are kids, so it's so much worse.
kids? Like, I mean, yeah, I know some 13-year-olds have sex and things like that, but for an
I mean,
adult
yeah.
to be like, saying that and imposing, I know she did it with him. The way these people think are disgusting, but they make me, it's like a caricature of a Republican, literally. I can't even say caricatures
They're
because of
really just acting like regular Republicans.
honestly, at this point, it's like I can't even say caricatures. After what happened January 6th, I don't think there's no like I don't think there's anything you can say about a Republican that is too much. These niggas literally stormed the fucking Capitol because Republicans don't think logically. And these people are so fucking unhinged and their logic literally makes no sense. It's like they took 2 Bible verses and just fucking ran with that shit.
Or I think because there's two kinds of Republicans. It's those ones, the QAnon, like legitimately unwell Republicans. And then there's the other kind who maybe do know better, but they care more about profits
Yeah.
and money and greed,
Yep.
or some fake like moral high ground where they're willing to do anything just to justify, like, or they're willing to justify anything to get what they want,
Yeah.
you know. And at this point it doesn't really matter which one is which, they all need to be out of here.
Yeah. No, entirely. I'm fucking over this shit. And hopefully in time we can just get those bitches just out of the world entirely. Ship them to outer space or something. I don't care. Yeah, so mommy and daddy and truly unhinged. Um, so back to the cellar, daddy's like chasing Fool in the cellar with the people under the stairs. He's like in there in this area. And I'm pretty sure that like Fool just gives them the power to attack Daddy. Because he tells them, like, if you can get past Daddy, there's an entryway where you can get out. This is how you get out. Meanwhile, while
Oh, well, first, Daddy sends Prince after Fool.
oh yeah, they kill Prince, which I was honestly happy to see.
So Daddy has a sword, as if this movie couldn't get more absurd.
Attached to the gun.
Yeah, it's like a a bayonet. That's what they're
Yeah.
called when they're attached to guns, right? But like it's not a real bayonet, it's like an actual sword that he just
Yeah.
puts on the top of the gun. And so he stabs it through the wall when he hears something move because he thinks it's Fool, and it comes out with blood on it. And so he's so happy, and Mommy's there too. And then they're clawing through the wall, and Prince's body falls out.
Yeah, because by this point, mommy is sick of daddy saying, like, I got him. And then Fool is not dead. So
Yeah.
she's like, make sure. So, yeah, so we're back in the basement, and daddy is like taken down by people on the stairs. And now mommy comes with the gun. And we're like, oh no, like she's gonna die, or Fool is gonna die. He's gonna meet his death. And then we hear a knock on the door. It's Ruby. And Ruby, she's so cute. She's like, I represent the people of the community, and we don't think we think what you're doing is unfair. Like she's basically trying to. I'm not sure if they're in on it. I'm not sure if like Fool.
So she doesn't know Fool's there because
Okay.
when she finds out Fool's there later, remember? Because she hears him from the basement and she's like, Fool?
Oh yeah, you're
So
so
they're there
right.
separately.
Yeah, okay. I'm like, I didn't know if that was part of the plan or not.
So I think they're inspired by Fool after he gives them the money that like will help take them out. So once his family is lifted out of poverty, they find the strength and inspiration to then fight for everyone else.
Right.
So she knocks on the door, mommy answers, mommy's annoyed, right?
Mhm.
And then some other stuff happens. And then the grandpa
Right.
knocks
He's
on the
like,
door
oh, it's the police.
and
Yeah.
he pretends to be the police. And so this is when we see mommy switch the lights back to like normal house lighting.
Mhm.
And she obviously still has her gun both these times. She opens it. It's this guy. Ruby's still there. They're like, we're with the community, you
Mhm.
know. And then she pulls her gun on them.
Yeah.
And she starts to call them
Yeah.
the N-word.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the community shows up.
And that's when Ruby says, "Are you gonna shoot all of us?"
Yeah. And then after that, she's able to get into the house.
Yeah. And yeah, Fool's downstairs having his little like debacle with the dad.
Oh.
How does Ruby get out of the house before Fool blows up the house?
So, yes, before Fool and Daddy have their thing. So Ruby gets in the house because Alice like gets her mom down, right? She knocks her out. And
Yeah.
so Ruby comes in to help her because she heard Fool.
Right.
And so they're talking, and then Ruby is trying to get Alice out of the house, but then the door closes behind her before Alice can. And then I think Ruby thinks Alice closed the door because she's like banging on the door saying, "We want to help you."
Yeah.
And Mommy's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So Mommy wasn't actually knocked out. She got up and she's the one who locked the door. And now she's threatening Alice again, and Alice leads her over to the stairs. And this is one of the best things that happens in the
Right.
movie.
I
So
forgot.
the stair people literally rise up from the stairs and pull Mommy down,
Yeah.
and they swarm her, and then they throw her down the stairs into the basement
Mhm.
and kill her.
Thank you so much for helping me remember this movie.
And so Daddy is nowhere to be found right now.
Right.
So the main stair person, the guy, um, he shows Fool the door behind which all of their treasure lies. And so then Fool makes a makeshift bomb, right? And then
That's when
that's when Daddy comes into this room and he sees him um, and
and he's back in the gimp suit.
because he doesn't blow up the house, he just blows up the basement.
Exactly, and that's why it.
Alice is fine.
Yeah, Alice is fine, Ruby's fine, and Fool ends up being okay.
Yes.
And it's beautiful because he blows up the basement in the area where like the treasure is, and the money just comes pouring out and raining on the community. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why we said like they literally redistribute the wealth. They That's such a beautiful ending.
It
And
is.
people have
Well, and the actual, like, if we want to talk about like the last shot of the movie, is the stair people running out into the world unnoticed by everyone else. And so that's really like the ending of the movie is essentially houseless liberation,
yeah,
but also wealth redistribution.
exactly.
It's the whole thing is beautiful, and
Honestly,
it's really poetic and nice.
yeah.
And there's so many ways this movie could have ended and it not have felt this good,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm glad it didn't do anything else.
Too. Yeah. And mommy and daddy got to burn in hell.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully. They kept saying that this whole time, burn in hell, burn in hell, burn in hell. And they were the ones that needed to burn in hell, and they did. So we got a nice little bow in the ending. Um I definitely recommend this movie, especially because it's Black History Month. If you're looking for like black horror movies to watch, and it's by Russ Craven, who's done some of the greatest films in the horror community. So I definitely recommend checking it out. I gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd,
I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars,
and it's sitting at 3.4 stars on Letterboxd.
which is too low.
It is too low.
Too low. But I understand, horror isn't everybody's thing, and some people just like to.
I feel like this movie would appeal more to non-horror people than any other, like than most horror films. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Certainly, maybe more than most of the other Wes Craven movies,
Yeah,
but I
sure.
don't know.
I'm gonna like just start forcing people to watch this movie because I feel like everybody can get something out of this for sure.
I agree. It's really good, and I'm glad we got to talk about it.
Me too. Thanks, guys, for watching this video. If you liked it, you can give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Disco Llama, Twitter at Ghosdee, and Letterboxd at Ghosdee. And Derek, where can they find you?
I am on Instagram at Derek Spooks and Twitter and Letterboxd at Derek Sykes 17.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I see you guys in the next video.